Morning. The first item of business is general questions, and I call Mark Ruskell at question number 1.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what action is being taken to ensure the safety of people seeking asylum who are housed in hotels across Perth.
Cabinet Secretary Shirley-Anne Somerville.
Everyone should be able to feel safe and secure in the place that they are living. The UK Government is responsible for providing all asylum accommodation, including hotels, and this includes security and support for people seeking asylum. I am deeply concerned that the protests outside asylum accommodation are creating significant fear and alarm. The right to peaceful public assembly and freedom of expression should never be used to justify any form of hateful, violent or otherwise criminal behaviour, and we fully support Police Scotland to take appropriate action in response to criminal offences being committed at or around these protests.
Mark Ruskell.
Well, can I warmly thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer. It is important we recognise there has been an increase in racist hate crimes in the last year, and far-right groups are using these protests to intimidate marginalised people. While buffer zones around accommodation could provide increased protections from fear and intimidation, that alone will not tackle the harmful rhetoric, the scapegoating or the false narratives being placed on people who are trapped in the asylum system. Communities have gathered and organised to put on counter-protests and rallies in Perth that show clear solidarity and a refusal for people to be demonised and attacked. So can I ask the Scottish Government, beyond buffer zones, what actions are they going to take to actually tackle the divisive messaging and to build on this community solidarity and to fight the far right?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, can I thank Mark Ruskell for bringing up this important question, because I think it once again gives this chamber, I hope, in full support right across this chamber, to say once again that yes, people have a right for peaceful protests, and yes, they have a right for freedom of expression, but nothing should happen in any of our communities to anyone living in our communities that spreads fear and alarm. And that is unfortunately something that we are seeing more of. The Government can take action and is taking action on this area as well, despite the fact, of course, as I said, that asylum is reserved. The Minister, CoCab Stewart, has done a great deal of work with communities and has increased the funding in community cohesion work, funding grassroots organisations to do exactly the type of work that Mark Ruskell has mentioned, which is exceptionally important. And, of course, the Government ran recently the We Are Scotland campaign to once again say how important it is that we stick together on this and not be divided.
A brief supplementary, Elena Whittam.
The abuse and intimidation we continue to witness in Perth and across the UK is deeply concerning and should have no place in our society. We know that ending no recourse to public funds is essential for the long-term integration and well-being of asylum seekers. So in light of this increasing hostility within our communities, can the Cabinet Secretary provide an update on the steps the Scottish Government is taking to challenge the UK Government on this policy?
Cabinet Secretary.
Well, no one should be forced into destitution, and that includes those that are subject to no recourse to public funds, which is a matter for the UK Government that they must resolve. The Scottish Government and COSLA are working together on an Ending Destitution Together strategy that deals with our work with no recourse to public funds. I'm deeply disappointed by the recent statement on asylum reform in November, which will push more people into destitution, which will see more people with no recourse to public funds. And the Scottish Government remains absolutely resolute that the UK Government should change their mind on this issue.
Question number 2, Annabel Ewing.
To ask the Scottish Government what the implications of its draft budget 2026-27 are for the provision of a new medical centre for Lochgelly.
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Presiding Officer, as set out in the infrastructure delivery pipeline, we are developing a revenue funding model to enable additional infrastructure investment across primary and community care with a network of local care and wellbeing centres, starting with projects in Port Glasgow, East Calder and Livingston, Cowdenbeath and Lochgelly, and the range of further sites that are listed in the document. We are also working with all boards to develop an NHS whole system infrastructure plan to inform future investment priorities across the estate and ensure available funding is directed to best effect.
Annabel Ewing.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I thank the Cabinet Secretary for his answer and, of course, welcome any proposed regeneration in my constituency with regard specifically to Lochgelly. It is, of course, good news for my Lochgelly constituents that a new Lochgelly Medical Centre is back on the Scottish Government's capital projects waiting list, but they will be dismayed that construction is not now forecast to start until at least 2031, some 20 years after first promised, and notwithstanding that there is a business case and that planning permission is in place. So does the Cabinet Secretary understand the disappointment felt, and what will he do to accelerate this project so that Lochgelly gets its long-awaited new medical centre?
Cabinet Secretary.
I very much recognise the points that Annabel Ewing raises. Having visited the centre and met with her constituents, I feel that and I understand that. That is why, in the absence of conventional capital being available within my portfolio and across government sufficient to bring forward these infrastructure investment projects, we have sought to create the revenue-based model in order to allow for the delivery of Lochgelly and Cowdenbeath and the other projects in the system. The current timeline is an estimate for the model to be ready alongside the associated business case and design work, and we're looking to accelerate that timeline, as I stressed to Ms Ewing in the meeting that I had with her recently. But the design of the facility tends to be the issue that takes the longest time to complete, but the business cases process will happen concurrently to the development of the funding model, and so the project can be progressed imminently.
Brief supplementary, Alec Rowley.
Presiding Officer, after 2 decades of broken promises, I'm sure the Health Secretary will understand why the people of Lochgelly will be hesitant to welcome this, but hopefully we're going in the right direction and it does happen. Can you also tell me the other health centre in Fife that is crumbling is Kincardine? Can you tell me there is no mention of Kincardine in any of these documents?
On the substantive question.
I recognise that in terms of the progress being made in Lochgelly, there is also progress for Kincardine, and further down the document from where we list Port Glasgow, East Calder, East Livingston, Cowdenbeath and Lochgelly, Kincardine is also there in the projects that will be delivered in the first tranche of the work being delivered through the revenue-based model. So I'm happy to give Alec Rowley that assurance, as I'm sat next to the constituency representative for Kincardine, Ms Somerville, to give her that assurance as well, that Kincardine is on that list and will be delivered as part of this too.
Question number 3, Rachel Hamilton.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on what work it is doing to improve access to thrombectomy services across the Scottish borders.
Minister Jenny Minto.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Our aim is to deliver a service providing thrombectomies whenever they are required. NHS Scotland's National Service Directorate has established a task and finish group to produce options to expand access to thrombectomy across Scotland, including NHS borders. This work is making positive progress. Since 2023-24, we have provided over £185,000 worth of funding for thrombectomy in NHS borders, including the provision of hyperacute stroke nurses. Subject to parliamentary scrutiny, a further £17 million has been allocated to the development of the thrombectomy service in the 26-27 budget. This will include continued investment in NHS borders.
Rachel Hamilton.
Presiding Officer, currently, essentially what the Minister is telling my borders constituents is that if they have a stroke and need a thrombectomy, they must hope it happens on a working week. And currently, patients in the south-east of Scotland can only access this treatment Monday to Friday at the Royal Infirmary between 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock. And that's due to a lack of funding and service. And there's only a £1 million uplift in the stroke funding. So that is not providing. There's still a deficit. Presiding Officer, stroke doesn't just happen on a weekday, it happens on weekends as well. So previously Jenny Minto acknowledged that thrombectomy not only transforms patient outcomes, but it can save the NHS money due to reduced hospital stays and less social care costs. But Minister, I think it's time that you commit to a meeting with me and the Stroke Association to set out a clear and urgent timetable for expanding thrombectomy services for people in the borders, because currently they feel it is an inequitable service.
Minister.
I thank Ms Hamilton for her question and would be very happy to meet with herself and the Stroke Association. I have regular meetings with the Stroke Association and also Chest, Heart and Stroke Scotland, and I also meet regularly with the leaders of stroke in all the NHS boards to ensure that they are as focused as I am, as the Scottish Government is ensuring, as I said in my first response, that thrombectomy services can be as equitable as possible through the hub and spoke mechanism that NSS are currently working on.
Question number 4, Ariane Burgess.
To ask the Scottish Government what its position is on whether voluntary reporting of mortality data in the salmon farming industry provides sufficient transparency and animal welfare protection.
Cabinet Secretary Mary Goujon.
More data are collected and published with respect to salmon farming in Scotland than for any other farming sector. Now, there are statutory requirements to report increased mortality, and a voluntary reporting mechanism supports fish health surveillance undertaken by the Fish Health Inspectorate. Data is proactively published and is sufficient for regulatory purposes. Numbers, though, do not protect welfare. Statutory protection, industry standards and regulatory powers do, and these are in place. Official guidance will be introduced to further progress welfare standards. The Animal and Plant Health Agency is responsible for considering potential breaches in welfare legislation, as well as suspected cases of poor welfare, and they are referred to this agency.
Ariane Burgess.
I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that response. Given that the Fish Health Inspectorate found in 2025 that more than 400,000 fish deaths had gone unreported across 27 incidents, that gill disease mortality has increased sharply, and that companies report fish culls to shareholders but not to the government, will the government commit to mandatory mortality reporting across all deaths before permitting further expansion of salmon farming?
Secretary.
I think in relation to Ariane Burgess's particular point on culling there, now, of course, as with other types of farming, producers sometimes need to humanely cull stock for operational or commercial purposes or to try and achieve better welfare outcomes for the individual fish rather than progression to the next phase of production. Now, of course, the Scottish Government we don't right now collect complete data on the number of fish culled at salmon farms, but exceptionally culling is required to mitigate the risk of listed diseases which could cause significant local or national impact. Now, culling is primarily the result of operational decisions, and it's not required for the Fish Health Inspectorate's surveillance programme for aquatic animal disease unless the cull relates to increased or unexplained mortality. So I would say that we require a number of pieces of data to be collected for a number of different purposes. And again, we believe that the data that is published, whether that's voluntary or what we require through regulation, is suitable for those purposes.
Edward Mountain.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Can I congratulate the industry with complying with recommendation of the REC report from 2018 on providing data? The problem is, Cabinet Secretary, for years, 9 years, they provided total weights of fish lost. Now they go on numbers of fish lost. Will the Cabinet Secretary, therefore, Presiding Officer, speak with the industry to see if they can continue to do it in the way they've done it for 9 years and not break a sequence of data which is really useful? Thank you.
Cabinet Secretary.
Again, I'm happy to look at that further and follow up with the Edward Mountain in relation to that. I do think the numbers themselves are important, but again, I would have to take that away and consider that further, but I will follow up with the member.
Question number 5, Sue Webber.
To ask the Scottish Government what progress it has made in the current parliamentary session on preventing gender-based violence in relation to non-fatal strangulation.
Minister Siobhan Brown.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Non-fatal strangulation is heinous behaviour which is criminal under Scots law and can be dealt with using a range of offences. We resource Police Scotland in the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service who independently enforce the criminal offences such as assault and domestic abuse that can be used to hold perpetrators to account. We have also ensured that new laws criminalising strangulation in pornography introduced through the UK's Crime and Policing Bill will extend to Scotland, and we keep laws under review, and a public consultation will be published shortly seeking views on a range of gender-based violence issues, including non-fatal strangulation. This is in line with our programme of government commitment. This will also include specific consideration on how better to record data in the criminal justice system on cases involving non-fatal strangulation.
Sue Webber.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I did struggle to hear most of that response, but I'll do my best. The Centre for Women's Justice has said many survivors describe how they truly believed they were going to die whilst they were being strangled. Some report such offending as taking place in full view of their children. Not being able to breathe is terrifying. England and Wales have brought in a standalone offence, and it was welcomed by frontline organisations like Women's Aid and the Domestic Abuse Commissioner. Why are the Scottish victims still being left behind, and what message does the Minister think it sends that victims here get less protection?
Minister.
Thank you. I hope the member is able to look back on my initial response to show the work that we are currently doing. We do understand that we need to improve our understanding the prevalence of non-fatal strangulation, and we know that more needs to be done. So alongside the robust Scottish laws, we are clear more is needed to understand the prevalence of non-fatal strangulation, and we have taken steps in the Scottish Crime and Justice Survey to find out from Scotland the prevalence of it. So the initial results will be available from 26 to 27, and the forthcoming Scottish Government consultation will also seek views on how best this can be done and how we can legislate moving forward.
Question number 6, Maggie Chapman.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government how it is ensuring that the local authorities involved with the RAC Housing Leadership Group are engaging appropriately and are including residents and RAC campaigners in their activities.
Cabinet Secretary Mary McCallum.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. It's my expectation that local authorities engage with tenants and with residents in their area as we work on solutions. As part of last week's RAC and Housing Leadership Group, I sought an update from local authorities and RSLs on the support that they're providing to residents, and their feedback included written communications, including letters, engagement with the Association of British Insurers on behalf of residents, updated communication strategies, regular monitoring and inspections of RAC, pilot projects, dedicated RAC staff and regular reporting to their committee and elected members.
Maggie Chapman.
In August last year, the Cabinet Secretary attended a public meeting in Dundee where an undertaking was given to ensure that those affected by RAC and campaigning for a fair resolution would be properly involved in processes and decisions. And yet this hasn't happened. Dundee Council has indicated it will roll out its roof reinforcing pilot to the rest of the city. But this pilot started without any consultation, and there are serious concerns that just covering up the RAC won't actually deal with the issue and could jeopardise mortgages and insurance. Can an update be given on how communications and engagement are progressing in Dundee with genuine community involvement?
Cabinet Secretary.
Presiding Officer, I would urge Dundee City Council to continue ensuring that it provides transparent and clear advice and appropriate support for residents affected by RAC. Maggie Chapman's quite right to mention the public meeting that I attended in Dundee on the topic. One of the commitments that I gave there for the Government's part was that I would try to use the new I-Struct guidance specifically for housing in RAC in Scotland to negotiate a better outcome for those looking to buy and sell properties that have been remediated. That was the subject of our leadership meeting last week, and I believe that progress is being made.
Question number 7, Colin Beattie.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on Action 20 of the Housing to 2040 strategy to streamline and accelerate the adaptation system.
Cabinet Secretary.
I restated our commitment to review the housing adaptations system during Stage 3 of the Housing Act. This review will consider how the process can be streamlined for people who need adaptations to access them quickly and easily. My officials have been working to develop the work streams to take that forward. I can update the Chamber that an advisory group of key stakeholders has been established, and the first meeting will take place on the 11th of February. Engagements will continue over the coming months, with a report and recommendations expected in autumn.
Colin Beattie.
In Midlothian North and Musselburgh, many of my constituents in Park Homes are living in difficult circumstances as they await progress on this point. With that in mind, what additional funding has been allocated to support the adaptation system?
Cabinet Secretary.
I appreciate the point that Colin Beattie makes to me, and I would point him again to that work that we're undertaking to ensure that a review is made. It's worth putting on the record in respect of his question on costs that in this year's budget we more than doubled the RSL's adaptation budget to £20.9 million, and our draft budget for the coming financial year maintains that.
Brief question 8, Stephen Kerr.
Government what assessment has made of the culture of whistleblowing in the NHS?
Cabinet Secretary Neil Gray.
Whistleblowing culture is essential to patient safety, staff confidence and the effective running of NHS Scotland. All health service staff should feel confident to raise concerns, and I have been direct with NHS boards about the need to protect and support whistleblowers. Concerns raised by whistleblowers must be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly. Whistleblowing culture is kept under review through staff surveys, engagement with boards, the NHS Scotland whistleblowing policy and the work of the independent National Whistleblowing Officer, whom I met this week. These arrangements promote safe reporting, accountability, transparency and learning.
Stephen Kerr.
Well, with the Scotsman exclusive this morning about trying to silence whistleblowers by offering them trips to Disneyland, the Patient Safety Commissioner in Parliament this week saying that people are frightened to speak up because of the culture of cover-up we have in the NHS, with careers being destroyed, the bullying, the endless cover-ups. Neil Gray must accept that what we have isn't working. Will he accept that we need a complete reset of whistleblowing in the NHS and in Scotland's public services? And will he take a lead in making the case for a truly independent Office of the Whistleblower outside of the structure of the NHS?
Cabinet Secretary.
I met with the independent National Whistleblowing Officer, the Ombudsman, this week to discuss priorities for strengthening the speak-up culture across NHS boards. He was clear with me that the structures that we have in place are robust. The issue that he is concerned about is ensuring that there is follow-up when concerns are raised and that action is taken when complaints are upheld. I've agreed to work with them around how we can make sure that there is greater scaffolding and ballast provided to that, and that's what I'll take forward with the National Whistleblowing Officer.